The day I divorced Calvin, I set out for my hometown. In my suitcase, there was only a white cotton linen dress, a plain hairband, and a blooming rose I had casually picked from the garden. That was all I had brought with me when I first came to S City. The family's old butler watched me closely, as if afraid I might take anything from the mansion. The young master went to the business school today, and the young miss to the international school. If you wish to see them one last time, there's no need, I said gently for the last time. Don't let trivial matters disrupt their studies. Pulling my suitcase, I walked through one gate after another, heading outward. The sky was overcast, and the wind was strong. Each time I passed through a door, more sunlight broke through the clouds. Unconsciously, I followed the light, my steps growing lighter and lighter, until one foot stepped beyond the villa gate. I turned back to look at the butler. Chapter 1. A faint smile, unseen for a long time, bloomed again upon my face. Please tell Calvin Hahn, I said softly. From this day on, Julia and he shall never meet again, in life or in death. Leaving the Hahn family villa, I stood on the busy street, dazed for a while. Since marrying into that wealthy family 5 years ago, I had not once stepped out alone. The life of a secluded socialite had nearly erased my connection with the bustling world. Fortunately, it had only been 5 years, not 10, not 20. I first found a hotel to stay in, and handed my credit card to the receptionist. I'm thinking of heading south, I said. Do you have any suggestions? The receptionist took the card, raised her brows slightly. A lady traveling alone, at least you're cautious. I smiled. A hotel in the most prosperous district of S City would surely have staff with wide connections. She said, driving yourself would be too dangerous. Not suitable for a lady traveling solo. If you want to be safe, take the high-speed rail or a flight. There are direct flights every day, if you have the budget. It'll be easy to book. I still had some budget left, but not much. If I spent it all here, I might struggle once I reached home. After a brief thought, I took out a delicate jade pendant from my bag. At the sight of it, her eyes widened. I'll exchange this pendant for 2 things, I said. First, a ticket for a flight heading south to my hometown. Second, safety before I board the plane. The last flight heading south had taken off yesterday. The next one wouldn't leave until the following day. That day, the morning was calm, but by afternoon the city grew restless. Through the gap in the window, I saw the streets swarming with police. Since Calvin took over the corporation 3 years ago, S City had been peaceful. Even the mayor had praised him at the annual gala. Later that evening, room service brought dinner and added a reminder. There might be serious trouble. Miss, the police are conducting citywide searches. The manager specifically told me to tell you, do not leave your room under any circumstances. Tomorrow morning, he'll send a car to take you to the airport. That night, though I locked doors and windows, the wailing of police sirens still seeped through the glass. I thought, Calvin must have gotten caught up in a major case. But he was clever, composed, a strategist through and through, cold and calculating, with ice and snow in both eyes and heart. The very image of a business elite, as he was meant to be. The next morning, before dawn, I sat in the car the hotel had arranged. Once we exited the city, the driver slipped some cash to a traffic officer, and the car slowly merged onto the highway toward the airport. As I sat inside, I thought I heard a sharp honk outside. Don't worry, miss, the driver said quietly, leaning near the window. The city's under lockdown, but we're already out. We'll reach the airport soon. When I stepped out of the car, the rain had begun to fall. Chapter 2. I held the plane ticket, passed security without issue, and boarded the flight. The price of the executive suite made me frown slightly, but I still swiped my card. The attendant led me in respectfully, though it couldn't compare to the Hahn family's villa. It was still luxurious and comfortable. Outside the window, the roar of helicopters echoed, and the crowd below stirred in panic. I couldn't help pulling back the curtains to look at the rain-shrouded skyline. 5 years ago, I had stepped into this bustling metropolis filled with hope and dreams. Now, all that remained was indifference. Just as I was about to close the window, I caught sight of a figure running through the downpour. In such heavy rain, that person must have been drenched to the bone. I didn't know whom he was chasing, but whoever it was already too late. I returned to my small hometown, With what little savings I had left, I bought a modest apartment by the lake. The decor was simple, the space warm and homely, and the balcony was filled with greenery. I picked up my old dream of studying medicine again, working at a clinic by day and reading medical journals by night. One evening, on my way home from work, I found a boy in the community garden, covered in blood. His arm, thigh, and abdomen were slashed deep, the wounds nearly exposing bone. He was on the brink of death, yet still faintly breathing. Fortunately, I always carried a first aid kit. After doing what I could to stop the bleeding, I rushed him to the hospital. Given how severe his injuries were, I thought he wouldn't survive. But miraculously, after 7 days and 7 nights of emergency care, he opened his eyes on the morning of the 8th. Those eyes were dark and pure, like a deep autumn lake, clear, untouched by the world. "Who are you?" he asked weakly, then murmured, "Where's my mother? Who am I?" From that day on, there was a new presence in my apartment, a boy named Leander. Having fought so fiercely to survive, Leander had a will like a wolf's, unyielding, sharp, and strong. We were an odd pair, an orphan with no past, and a single mother new to the small town. Inevitably, gossip followed, but compared to the poisonous whispers of the Han family's upper class, such small-town rumors meant nothing to me. Leander, however, refused to tolerate any insult. One night while I was showering, I heard a commotion outside, followed by a sharp cry. Rushing out, I saw Leander gripping a mop, teaching a drunken man a painful lesson. After that, every time I bathed, he would bring a small stool and sit outside the bathroom door. "Mom's not alone," he said firmly. "I can protect you." Each morning, before dawn, Leander would get up to prepare breakfast, clean the apartment, and water the plants on the balcony. When the sun rose, he'd come wake me gently for breakfast. He'd turn leftovers into delicious little meals to feed the stray cats downstairs, build them shelters out of cardboard, and use old towels to dry their fur. "You don't have to do all this," I told him once. "I'm the mother here." Chapter 3. "Precisely because you're the mother," Leander said matter-of-factly, placing a peeled egg in my bowl. "It's only right that a son takes care of his mom." His words brought back the faces of my 2 children far away in S City, born into luxury, raised by Calvin's mother. Every year, they would visit me briefly on my birthday, gestures full of politeness, yet empty of warmth. Every smile and movement bore the mark of aristocratic training, distant, cold. I cut the egg in half and gave him one piece. And it's also a mother's duty to care for her son. Seeing my smiling face, Leander lowered his head and quietly ate his half. Not long after, I enrolled Leander in school, in that ordinary public school filled with rowdy children. He stood out, always sitting straight, reading with focus. His homeroom teacher, impressed by his calm and maturity, often kept him after class to tutor him personally. One snowy evening, I worried it would be difficult for him to get home, so I drove to pick him up. Just as I reached the school gate, I overheard his teacher ask, "Why do you study so diligently?" Leander's young yet steady voice answered, "I know I wasn't born to her, but my mom raised me all by herself. She treats me better than if I were her own. If I can't make something of myself and give her a better life, how could I ever repay her kindness?" I looked up at the snow fluttering down, though the air was biting cold. Warmth filled my heart. Years slipped by in the blink of an eye. Leander graduated from elementary school and entered a prestigious high school, earning a full scholarship for his outstanding grades. Every weekend, he would return home from the boarding school. "Mom," he said one day, "I got first place again in last week's monthly exams. That's 7 times in a row now. The principal said a big corporation is coming to select top students for an elite training program, and I'm on the short list. He asked me to bring you to school to discuss it." It was wonderful news. That weekend, I went to the school with Leander. The principal was very courteous, repeatedly praising Leander's intelligence and bright future. "This visiting school is among the best," he explained. "For 3 consecutive years, they've come to select students, but never found one suitable. They look not only at grades, but also at the parents' character and background. For Leander's sake, I hope you'll handle this meeting well." I nodded and followed him to the conference room door. At the entrance, the principal said softly, "Chairman, Leander's mother has arrived. The double doors opened. I adjusted my clothes and walked in slowly. Hello. I'm Julia, I said politely, extending my hand. But before I could finish, I heard a sharp intake of breath, followed by the sound of a glass shattering onto the floor. Instinctively, I looked up and met a gaze I knew too well. A moment of shock, confusion, then utter silence. I had thought we would never see each other again in this lifetime, yet fate, in its cruelty or mercy, had brought us face to face once more. He looked thinner now. Chapter 4. His shoulders were narrower now, his face thinner, and the sharpness between his brows had only grown keener. Step by step, Calvin walked toward me, his jawline taut and elegant, his dark eyes carrying a faint, bloodshot glint. I lowered my gaze, as I should, humble and deferential. A commoner and a chairman, this was how it ought to be. Julia! Calvin's voice was low and hoarse, trembling between fury and pain. So he did have anger. After all, I had almost forgotten he was capable of such emotion. Between Calvin Hahn and me, there had always been a gulf, the mire and the sky. Years ago, when the Hahn group was on the brink of collapse, my father saved it. Old Master Hahn, grateful for that debt, left my father a small share of the company as a token of future repayment. But because my father had intervened, he became a target for his rival's revenge. Before his death, he urged me to travel north to S City and seek shelter from the Hahn family. I went through hardship and peril, narrowly surviving the journey before I finally arrived at the Hahn headquarters. Upon learning that my father had died because of him, Old Master Hahn wept bitterly and said he owed my family too much. Seeing that I had just graduated and was alone in the world, he decided to repay that debt by arranging a marriage, promising that his grandson would give me a lifetime of peace and stability, so his conscience might be at ease. And so, I met Calvin Hahn. That winter day, I stood in the company's grand lobby, watching from afar as a tall, refined figure approached. Snowflakes filled the air. He wore a black coat, his bearing upright, his presence cold and restrained. When I first saw Calvin, it felt like glimpsing an eagle soaring through a frozen sky, distant, majestic, untouchable. It was only natural that I would fall for someone like that. But I also knew that he and I did not belong to the same world. I declined Old Master Hahn's proposal and requested instead a small sum to start a business, along with a modest house in S City. That was all I wanted as repayment, nothing more. Having studied medicine under my father, I had always dreamed of a simple, peaceful life. I didn't seek wealth or fame, just enough to live by. Because of that blunt request, Madame Hahn and several members of the family grew displeased. Their words were polite, but their mockery was sharp. At least she knows her place. A girl from the countryside, does she think she deserves a man raised by generations of nobility? Besides, everyone in S City knows that Calvin and Miss Mao, the daughter of the Mao Corporation, were childhood sweethearts. As soon as she graduates, they'll be engaged. They're a perfect match. What business does a village girl with no sense of class have meddling between them? But I had never intended to meddle. When Old Master Hahn saw that my mind was made up, he agreed to prepare the money and the property after the Mid-Autumn Festival and allow me to leave. On the night of the full moon, the Hahn villa was bright with celebration. Madame Hahn hosted a gathering of socialites, with Miss Mao as the guest of honor. Holding a glass of champagne, I avoided the crowd and sat by the garden pool, quietly admiring the moon. Then, suddenly, someone shoved me hard, and I fell into the water. Having grown up by a lake, I could swim well, but the sudden fall made my leg cramp, and I couldn't move. Chapter 5. Just as I was about to sink, a dark figure dove into the pool. I swallowed water, my vision blurred, and I instinctively clung to the person who'd caught me. When my sight cleared, the first thing I saw was a drenched shirt clinging to a strong chest, and then, the glaring lights that illuminated half the villa, along with layers of men and women staring in shock. They said that since Calvin had jumped in to save me, soaked through, my purity was compromised. In my hometown, where everyone lived by the water, swimming together was nothing, men and women alike. Clothing rarely stayed dry, and no one thought twice of it. What did such things have to do with purity? But the more I explained, the darker everyone's expressions grew. Before the night ended, Old Master Hahn publicly declared that Calvin and I would be married within 3 days. I wasn't the only one caught off guard. Even now, I can still recall the faces of those present, their unfiltered emotions frozen in that moment. Madame Hans was one of fury, the young ladies, contempt, the servants, disdain, and Miss Mouse, a blend of grief, disbelief, regret, jealousy, and hatred. Only Calvin's face remained unreadable, cold, distant, impassive. The eagle that once soared above the clouds had fallen, ensnared in the mire, and I, the mire, foolishly thought I had kept him, never realizing that the world we shared would one day shatter to pieces. The chairman's office was silent. I stood where I was, bowed slightly, unmoving. "You," Calvin began. His voice strained, but stopped after a single word. After a long pause, he finally said in a deep, low tone, "Do you have anything to say to me?" I did not look up. My tone was calm, respectful. "My son, Leander, is intelligent, dutiful, and ambitious. I hope the chairman might offer him guidance and opportunities. We've been divorced for 3 years," Calvin said, his voice as cold and still as a frozen lake. "Yet Leander is already 9. Is he your stepson?" Even a man as self-controlled as Calvin, who could bury storms beneath his calm exterior, could not hide the tension in that faintly trembling question. After a moment's thought, I answered truthfully, "No, not a stepson. Leander is my adopted son." There was a long silence. Then Calvin gave a quiet his tone softening slightly. "Since he's your adopted son, that still connects him to me. I'll naturally." "Chairman," I interrupted softly, lifting my head to meet his gaze. "Leander has no connection to you. Neither do I." After returning to my hometown, I finally lived as I had once dreamed, becoming an obstetrician. Thanks to my skill, I not only helped deliver babies but also treated a wide range of women's health issues. Over time, my reputation spread throughout the surrounding towns. Since leaving S City, my days had been filled with work, leaving no time, nor desire, to think of anything else. Chapter 6. Childbirth was always perilous, a battle between life and death. And lately, with the baby boom, expectant mothers were more numerous than ever. Another weekend came, and Leander returned home. He stayed up for 2 nights straight, researching university materials, studying every subject he could, and preparing over a dozen sets of study notes. When I finally found a quiet moment, I asked him whether Calvin had made things difficult for him. "No, he didn't," Leander said calmly, his dark eyes steady. "He just kept asking questions about you." He looked at me. "You and you knew each other before, didn't you?" I lowered my gaze and gave a quiet hum of acknowledgement. "Do you dislike him?" Again, I nodded. Leander's face hardened slightly. "I understand." After that day, he never asked about Calvin again. 2 peaceful weeks passed. Then Calvin returned, his luxury business car startling the quiet of our little town. Leander jumped out first, expression cold, followed by an assistant who unfolded a high-end chair beside the car. Then Calvin stepped down, with 2 children walking beside him. They were twins, a boy and a girl, beautiful and refined. Their features resembled mine not at all. They had inherited all of Calvin's fine looks. "Mom." Leander ran toward me, standing firmly in front of me like a shield. That's when I noticed the red marks on his wrist, the shape of someone's grip. My heart clenched. Calvin's gaze met mine briefly before he looked down and said quietly to the twins, "Go on." The children hesitated, but obediently walked toward me. My whole body trembled. I felt cold, as though every drop of warmth had drained away. I had fought through countless brushes with death to bring them into this world. During childbirth, I had hemorrhaged. I could still remember the terror of life slipping from my body, the world going dark. It wasn't that I'd never known what it meant to love as a mother. I remembered, one bitter winter, sneaking into the villa's garden to build 4 snowmen, a family of 4, hoping they'd see them when they went out. And remember we were once whole. I remembered when my daughter had a relentless fever, and I, desperate, offered my own blood, foolishly believing that a mother's blood could heal her child. And I remembered, most vividly, the day they were taken from me. I had clutched the butler's sleeve until my knuckles bled, refusing to let go. "You, with your background, could never raise them properly. The madam will raise them herself. You don't have the right to object. Besides, you're their mother. When they grow up, they'll come to love you naturally." But when they grew up, they didn't love me. They despised me. Chapter 7. A maid and a chauffeur in the villa had fallen in love secretly. Fearing discovery and dismissal, the maid hid her pregnancy until the 7th month. When I accidentally found out, the shock triggered early labor. A human life was at stake. There was no time to call for help. I couldn't just stand by. So I helped her deliver the baby. The infant's first cry had barely filled the garage when the door burst open. The old matriarch stormed in, fury blazing. She ordered the servants to bring the family's disciplinary whip and had me flogged 10 times in front of everyone. My back split open, flesh torn and blood streaming. I collapsed on the floor, trembling in agony, drenched in cold sweat. My daughter clung to the matriarch's waist, refusing to look at me. My son pointed at me with hate in his eyes. Shameless! You've disgraced us all. You don't deserve to be my mother. Now, years later, those same twins stood before me. Mom, they whispered, their heads bowed. Little master, little miss, you must have mistaken me for someone else. I said with a strained smile, lowering my head humbly. I'm just an ordinary nurse. How could I be your mother? I had done nothing wrong, even if that child had been illegitimate, even if that maid had been immoral, and even if delivery was supposed to be the job of midwives or doctors, I had still done nothing wrong. But Calvin's grand arrival had shattered the fragile peace Leander and I had built. After they left, the neighbors couldn't stop gossiping. Who was that elegant man? Who were those beautiful twins? After some thought, I told them. Their mother nearly died giving birth, massive bleeding, almost losing both her life and the babies. The chairman's mother ordered the doctors to save the mother, not the children. But I saved them all. So to them, I may have done a small favor. Nothing more. I truly didn't know why Calvin had brought the children to see me, nor did I wish to guess. It no longer mattered. 2 pregnant women in the nearby community were due soon. I had already arranged to assist them. Hemostatics, tocolytics, iron supplements, disinfectant cloths, scissors, sutures. I checked them all 3 times, then reviewed the patient's prenatal charts once more, preparing for every possible complication. That was what deserved my full attention. Calvin later enrolled his twins in the city's most prestigious private school, the same one where Leander studied. But even the best of schools in the small city wouldn't dare offend the children of a corporate magnate. Within a few days, the principal announced a building renovation and dismissed all the students. Then, once again, Calvin came to send Leander home. This time, he didn't stay by the car. He walked right up to me, his voice low. Nova is sick. She wants to see you. Chapter 8. I looked at the girl among the twins, Nova. Her face was pale, and though it was summer, she was wrapped in an elegant shawl. I felt nothing. My tone was cool, detached. If she's sick, then she should return to the city to see a doctor, or go to a hospital for a proper examination. It's getting late. You should all head back. I called for Leander and turned toward the house. Suddenly, my wrist was seized. Calvin's voice was low and taut with restrained anger. Nova is your own flesh and blood. Those words struck like a detonator. Nova hurried toward me, every step poised and graceful, her dress swaying lightly without revealing a single toe. She threw her arms around my waist, pressing her fevered cheek against me, her voice trembling. Mom. Nova feels so sick. In the end, Nova Hahn and Elias Hahn stayed. I could never truly turn away from a child, nor from life itself. Nova lay on the bed, wrapped in a fur coat worth more than everything else in my small home combined. She refused to touch the worn bedsheets beneath her, lying stiffly, almost uncomfortably, but insisted nonetheless. I didn't try to correct her. After examining her, I turned to Calvin. It's just an acclimation reaction. She'll be fine soon. You should return to S City as soon as possible. Calvin's reply came quietly. There are pressing matters at the company. The group is currently screening candidates for the new management trainee program. I nodded slightly, then finished the selection quickly, so you can all go home sooner. Calvin's hands clenched. His voice sharpened. You say that because you want your adopted son to be chosen. And when you say go home sooner, you mean you want us gone, don't you? I met his gaze calmly. Yes. That single word seemed to push him past his limits. There's no place for me in your eyes, or for our children. They're not ours. I said evenly. They're yours. Nova, Elias. Their father was Calvin. They were raised by Madame Hua. They had nothing to do with Julia. Julia had let them go. Calvin's face drained of color. His lips trembled as he murmured, almost to himself, "We only divorced, just divorced. You're still their mother. They're still our children." Before I could speak, Calvin took 3 unsteady steps back and turned away, leaving quickly. I watched his retreating figure, disoriented, desperate, a sight I had never seen in him before. So, I thought, even the same word could hold different shades of meaning. Calvin's lost meant stumbling steps and unsteady breath. Mine had once meant utter ruin, being stripped bare of dignity and breath alike. When had it begun? Perhaps the moment, not long after our marriage, when I overheard Calvin telling his closest friend, marrying Julia was never my choice. I wanted to marry into another powerful family, to form an alliance. But my father threatened me with her reputation. I didn't care at first, but refusing might have hurt the company's image. So, weighing the pros and cons, I agreed. Chapter 9. Perhaps it began when I was pregnant. And Calvin said coldly, "The company is at a critical stage. This is not the time for a firstborn. Go to the hospital and deal with it." Or perhaps it began the day I cooked 4 dishes for him, hoping to share a simple meal, only for him to dump them all into the trash, saying with icy disdain, "You should act like a lady from a noble family, not waste time on trivial chores like this." Or maybe it was the time he humiliated me in public, then stared at me with cold disgust and said, "Shameless, vulgar, how could someone like you ever deserve to be the wife of the Han Group's president?" There were too many moments to count. Lost and broken? Back then, I was neither. I was hollow, a shell moving through life without a soul. After Calvin left that day, I made a pot of lotus root and pork rib soup. I asked Leander to keep an eye on the twins, picked up my medical kit, and headed to the community hospital. The delivery went smoothly, 2 hours of labor, minor tearing, little blood loss, and both mother and baby were safe. Among the births I'd attended, this was one of the better ones. When I returned home, I heard voices arguing inside. The first came from Elias, furious and sharp. "You think we wanted to come here? If Dad hadn't forced us, who would ever want to live in this dump?" Then Nova's voice joined, shrill and trembling. "And you dare talk back to us? You're just a filthy nobody from the countryside." Elias sneered, his tone full of venom. "A lowlife, a disgrace. She seduced my father and ruined everything. I had to quit my international school and come to this miserable place, all because of her." Nova began to sob. "I miss Grandma. I want to go home." I pressed a hand to my chest. Once, even seeing them from afar had filled me with joy. Now, I felt only stillness, a quiet so heavy it almost felt like sleep or death. I made a bit of noise on purpose before entering. The house went instantly silent. When I opened the door, the 3 children were seated at the table, each with a bowl of lotus root soup before them. Perhaps realizing I had overheard their words, the twins' faces turned uneasy. "Mom." Leander stood up and took the heavy medical kit from me. After washing my hands, I returned to find an extra bowl of soup on the table. When I sat down, there was suddenly a rib in my bowl and 1 less piece of lotus root. Leander had quietly switched them. I smiled. "Mrs. Lee just gave birth to a baby girl." Leander nodded. "Last week I went shopping with her husband. He said he could already tell it would be a girl. He even bought a bunch of princess dresses in advance for his little princess. He gave me quite a few gifts as thanks." I said, "Tomorrow, I'll ask Aunt Lou to buy you a new shirt too." "Mom, don't bother." Leander sighed softly. We talked about simple, everyday things, nothing special, nothing deep. But somehow, one of those ordinary words struck a nerve. With a loud bang, Elias slammed the table and stood up, glaring at me. "I know you heard us." He spat. Before I could respond, he straightened his neck defiantly and said, "I'm not afraid that you did." Chapter 10. You and Dad were never a match. Because of your lowly background, we have no powerful family to rely on. When my sister marries, when I enter the business world, people will look down on us because of you. Leander clenched his fists, ready to fight, but I gently pressed his hand down. Calmly, I looked at the twins and asked softly, "If not for me, would either of you even exist?" Elias and Nova froze, their expressions stunned. Later that evening, Calvin came to pick them up. Before any of us could speak, someone rushed over in panic. "Doctor, Ava just fell, there's so much blood." I turned instinctively to call for help, but Leander was already running ahead, one hand holding my medical kit, the other using his phone's flashlight to light the way. "It's getting dark, I'll go with Mom," he said. Calvin stepped in front of us and extended his hand toward Leander. "Give me the kit." Leander looked at him warily. Calvin turned his gaze toward me, those dark eyes deep as a shadowed lake. "I'll drive you there. It'll be faster." Without hesitation, I took the kit and Leander's phone and walked toward Calvin's car. Inside the car, I immediately opened Ava's medical record. Suddenly, the light inside brightened. Calvin had turned on the car's overhead lamp. I ignored him, my attention fixed entirely on the documents before me. After a while, his voice broke the silence. "Are you thirsty? There's lotus leaf tea, your favorite." No, I didn't lift my eyes. A pause. Then again, "Hungry?" "I brought some lotus pastries. You used to like them." "Not hungry." My eyes stayed on the screen. Another silence. Then, almost to himself, he murmured, "It's hot. Can you please be quiet?" My tone was cold, and I frowned. When I finally looked up and saw his face, I paused, then said evenly, "This is a matter of life and death. Don't distract me." Ava's pregnancy had been difficult from the start. She suffered intense reactions, swelling, shortness of breath, even temporary vision loss at 7 months. She had endured everything to reach her due date, waiting for her baby's safe arrival. None of us had expected something to go wrong now. Perhaps sensing her own danger, Ava gripped my wrist with bony fingers, her eyes wide with desperation. "Save the baby, please. I don't care if I die. Just save my baby." Expressionless, I pried her hand away and said quietly, "I can't save your baby, only you can. If you live, the baby lives. If you die, both will die." She bit down hard on her lip and pushed through the pain with all her strength. Though I disinfected my hands 3 times, blood still stained my sleeves, and the smell of antiseptic clung to me. When I stepped out of Ava's house, Calvin was standing by his luxury business car, waiting in the dim light. Night had fallen. The streetlights glowed weak and yellow. I remembered once waiting like that too, alone, standing in the dark, hoping he would come home with me. Chapter 11. The Han Group's headquarters was enormous. From the western district where we lived to the eastern district where the old chairman and madam resided, it took 15 minutes by car. Every evening after work, Calvin would drive there to report directly to his grandfather. I worried he was overworking himself, so I often prepared supper and drove out to pick him up. At first, I could wait in the eastern lobby. Later, he no longer allowed me into the building, so I waited in the parking lot. Eventually, he forbade me to come at all. "There are plenty of staff at the company. My mother ensures everything I need is ready. If you've nothing to do, don't come to headquarters again." Those words still echoed clearly in my memory. Standing a few paces away from him now, I gave a small nod. "Thank you, President Han, for the ride. You and I were once husband and wife. There's no need to be so distant." He avoided my eyes and stepped aside. "Get in." "No." I looked at him and spoke softly. "I've just delivered a baby. I'm not exactly clean. I shouldn't sit in your car." Turning away, I walked toward the nearby taxi stand. Along the road stood walls enclosing luxurious neighborhoods, the silhouettes of tall trees swaying gently behind them. It was early autumn. The leaves had just begun to yellow, though the season hinted at decay. I didn't find it sorrowful. Nature renews itself endlessly. The leaves that fall this year will return as fresh green next spring. Unlike the artificial lake at the Han estate, no matter how carefully I tended it, the water lilies bloomed fewer each year, the paths thinning, the life fading, until at last, only one single flower remained, the one I took with me when I left. Footsteps sounded behind me. I stopped and turned. Calvin stood there in a tailored suit, still exuding his usual grace and authority, yet his polished Italian leather shoes were streaked with mud from the rural path, a sight strangely out of place. Once, I had looked up at him from a world apart. Now, he stood in mine, equally out of place. "Calvin." At last, I spoke his name. He froze, Then light flickered in his eyes, a spark of something close to joy. I interrupted him. Why did you bring the children to see me? He hesitated for a long moment, then said quietly, there have been many misunderstandings between us. I hope you'll come back with me, so we can be a family again. I tilted my head slightly, saying nothing. Calvin, usually so reserved, began speaking endlessly, words tumbling out, uncharacteristically raw. I was born lacking in emotion. It wasn't my intention to neglect you. In business, I can calculate gain and loss with precision, but with you, I lost all sense of calculation. I didn't know how to treat you well, nor what was right to do. I won't make that mistake again. Julia. I understand my heart now. His voice trembled. His composure cracked. I love you. I looked at his face for a long moment, dazed. Chapter 12. Once upon a time. Just a look from Calvin would have been enough to make my heart race, let alone a confession like this. But now, I was surprised to find my heart perfectly calm. Julia. He stepped closer, took my hand gently. I never remarried. My heart has always been yours. I looked down at our joined hands, then asked quietly, would you stay here with me, resign from the Han group, for my sake? Calvin froze. He wouldn't. I could see it instantly. My expression remained steady, calm, almost indifferent. You said there were many misunderstandings between us. I know, but I also know that in your heart, the Han group, the family name, the power, has always mattered more than I do. So before our engagement, you wanted to marry a rich heiress for alliance, and after our wedding, you kept an ambiguous relationship with her. Do you know when I truly decided never to look back? It wasn't when your mother said I could only stay as a concubine, and you stayed silent. Nor was it when I filed for divorce, and you agreed without hesitation. It was when I saw the mansion you designed at 26, the one you built to welcome your true bride. After our divorce, I had to wait 15 days for the final paperwork. But the very next morning, Calvin was sent abroad for business. During that time, I was caught between two identities, no longer his wife, yet not entirely a stranger. I had planned to move out of the master bedroom, but before I could, a team of interior designers and contractors arrived. You don't have to move out, said Madame Han's assistant with a polite but cutting smile. That heiress would never live in a room you've used. And besides, young Master Calvin designed an entirely new villa for his future bride when he was 26. Every brick, every blade of grass, planned by his own hand. That's the home he's meant to live in. The Han family was wealthy enough to fill half their garden just to raise that mansion from the ground. I stood in the courtyard, watching as it rose, from nothing to magnificence, lavish and shining. In that moment, I stopped lying to myself. No matter how many times I made him herbal soup, or picked out his tailored suits, I would always be nothing more than an accident in his perfectly arranged life. That mansion was never mine. Calvin was never mine. You gave me 5 years of marriage and never remarried, that's true. You allowed rumors about Miss Mao to spread to secure a business alliance, that's also true. You asked me to return to the villa, to reconcile, true again. And you won't give up your family empire for me, that too is true. I smiled faintly, my voice barely above a whisper. You're shrewd and decisive. Calvin, you must know by now, the Han legacy and I can't coexist. And between us, you'll never choose me. Chapter 13. Julia. Calvin's voice was hoarse. The man who had always been the picture of composure, the calm, poised, brilliant CEO, now sounded fragile, almost broken. I didn't understand my heart before, and I wronged you. I'll speak to my mother. She won't make things difficult for you again. Everyone in the company will respect you. You and I, husband and wife, we can live in peace and affection. It has nothing to do with the Han group. So why must you? As I thought. I sighed softly. You still wouldn't choose me. Calvin froze, his fingers instinctively loosening their grip. Calvin, you have your grand career, your glory, I said quietly, and I have my own life's pursuit, ordinary, perhaps, but fulfilling enough. Some flowers bloom from the mud and open wide in the wilderness. Some cranes bathe in light, untouched by dust. Flowers fill the fields. Cranes soar to the clouds. You and I, we are destined to meet, but not to belong. We walked the rest of the way in silence. I held my phone for light, And so did he. The pale glow of our screens stretched two faint paths ahead of us, converging and separating as we walked side by side. When the villa's gates came into view, my sleeve was suddenly tugged. Calvin's hand trembled, his fingers unable to stay still. His voice was a broken whisper. I do have you in my heart. I was just too late. It's not too late, I said softly. It's just wrong. If not for that night, that one irreversible night, I would still be me. And he would still be him. Each of us would have stayed in our own world, safe and untouched. After that day, Leander and the twins never fought again. But when the twins looked at him, their eyes still burned with resentment, raw, red, and hateful. Before getting into the car, Calvin turned back to me. I'll come to see you again. There's no need, I said. I don't want to see you, or them. The twins immediately looked at me the way they looked at Leander, as though I were something detestable. Calvin fell silent, then led the children into the car. The luxury sedan rolled away slowly, its taillights glowing faintly in the dark. Leander tugged on my hand and whispered, Mom, I did something wrong. What is it? I looked down at him. He pressed his lips together. After a moment, he murmured, They kept saying awful things about you. I couldn't stand it. So I added some bitter melon powder to the health soup. Bitter melon powder was horribly bitter. One sip could leave your mouth numb for hours. Leander looked a little remorseful. They're your children too. I shouldn't have. Leander, I interrupted with a faint smile. Aren't you my only child? After smiling, I couldn't help but sigh. But your chance at that prestigious school might be gone now. I'm not going to that school. Leander looked up at me, his eyes clear as spring water. I've decided to attend the local university instead. The principal has already written me a recommendation. Someone from C University will come soon. C University was good, but not nearly as prestigious as the capital's elite institutions. Leander could have gone anywhere, between taking a shortcut to success and staying by the mother who raised me. Leander said, smiling, I'll always choose you. Chapter 14. Not long after, Leander entered C University. The following year, when he came home for a visit, he walked in through the gate carrying a single lotus flower. Someone must have picked it from the campus lake and tossed it away, he said, handing it to me. The flower was on the verge of blooming. I found a glass vase and placed it inside. That lotus bloomed well past the Mid-Autumn Festival. In the years that followed, more flowers came and went, each one blossoming anew. But I never again saw the person who had first plucked and abandoned that lotus flower. Extra, Calvin. Calvin Hahn was the eldest son of the Hahn patriarch, a man of striking looks, calm composure, and immaculate self-control. In all his dealings, he had never taken a misstep. Every gesture, every strategy, was calculated with long-term ambition in mind. He knew how to build a reputation, how to establish authority, and even how to use marriage alliances to secure greater power in the future. Every move was deliberate, every plan carefully laid. At 24, he set his sights on the Mao Corporation. At 25, just as he had planned, he accidentally encountered the Mao family's daughter and won her affection. At 26, he personally designed their future home. According to his plan, one day Miss Mao would see these design drafts, and upon seeing the care he had put into every detail, she would fall for him completely, heart and soul. No hesitation, no resistance. But then, unexpectedly, a girl named Julia appeared. She came with only a simple travel bag, yet cradled in her arms was a freshly picked lotus blossom. Shy and soft-spoken, she said she had no expensive gifts to offer and didn't want to arrive empty-handed. So she had plucked the flower from the lotus pond at a park outside the city as a small token of goodwill. His father had already promised her hand to him. From the bottom of his heart, Calvin opposed it, but he showed nothing on his face, for he was the very image of a business elite, calm, dutiful, filial, and in his world, obedience to one's parents was not to be questioned. He could tell, from the way Julia's ears flushed red the first time they met, that she had fallen for him at first sight. That only made him more irritated. If he didn't marry Miss Mao and instead chose an ordinary girl, his path in the business world would become far more complicated. Yet, to his surprise, Julia refused him. Julia clearly had feelings for him, but instead of accepting the engagement, she asked for startup capital instead. That was unexpected. Not only that, after politely rejecting the arranged marriage, Julia began to avoid him, sometimes deliberately, sometimes not. Calvin was convinced that with his looks and status, no woman could truly reject him. Julia's avoidance must have been a form of playing hard to get, a classic tactic to pique his interest. Later, he realized the truth. Julia really was avoiding him. Coming from an ordinary background, she often did things unbecoming of a wealthy family's young lady. Once, she even wore shorts and waded into the artificial lake of the Villa district to catch fish, holding the wriggling fish in her arms. Her laughter was bright, radiant as the stars themselves. It was utterly absurd. Even in the dead of night, no respectable woman of high society should behave so freely. Yet her fair, slender legs shimmered under the moonlight, and if anyone had seen her, at least, in the quiet of that night, he had. Chapter 15. What frustrated him most was that Julia had turned those fish into a delicious feast, shared among the company executives. Everyone was invited. Everyone except him. Calvin wasn't angry, or at least he told himself he wasn't. Yet an inexplicable heaviness settled in his chest. On the night of the Mid-Autumn Festival, he was supposed to attend a banquet with Miss Mao. But somehow, against all logic and reason, he found himself secretly following Julia instead. Julia sat alone on a bench by the lake, eating mooncakes and smiling to herself. Tomorrow, she would move out of the villa, and yet she could still smile. The pen in Calvin's hand nearly snapped in half. Just then, he noticed Miss Mao's assistant quietly approaching Julia. With a single glance, Calvin understood what the assistant intended to do. He could have stopped it. He could have sent a text to warn her, or he could have done nothing at all. But in that brief flash of impulse, he made the most reckless decision of his life. After Calvin and Julia married, he found himself at a loss for how to deal with her. This was never part of his plan, so he defaulted to his usual demeanor, distant and calm. When business partners asked him how married life felt, he would never speak of what truly happened that night. Instead, he gave a composed, perfunctory answer, one that hid all his inner turmoil. When Julia became pregnant, he was overjoyed. Finally, there would be a child of his own blood. But soon, he sensed something was wrong. Miss Mao refused to accept defeat. Fearing the dangers of pregnancy herself, she conspired with his mother, and together, they gave Julia a drug. The drug was designed to induce multiple pregnancies, if Julia were to die in childbirth, and the doctors chose to save the infants instead. Miss Mao and his mother would have what they wanted. It was a matter that implicated the Mao Corporation, something that could never be made public. So Calvin fabricated a reason, asking Julia to terminate the pregnancy. But Julia was strong-willed, and his mother didn't agree either. Miss Mao seized the opportunity to interfere, arranging for Calvin to be sent abroad to manage a branch office. In the end, Julia risked her life to give birth to twins. But the delivery left her body frail. She would need careful recovery, or else she might never heal properly. So Calvin agreed to let his mother raise the twins, telling Julia it was so she could rest and regain her strength. But Julia didn't know the truth. In the dead of winter, she sneaked into the nursery to record a video for the babies. Was she trying to freeze herself to death? In a fit of anger, Calvin deleted the video and scolded her harshly, warning her never to act so recklessly again. Her status in the family was already precarious. If she slipped up and Miss Mao or his mother caught her mistake, her position would become even more dangerous. And yet she insisted on helping a maid deliver her illegitimate child. What would people say? What scandal would that cause? He had only meant for his mother to give her a small lesson, something to make her remember her place. But his mother went too far. She publicly humiliated Julia without the slightest mercy. When he rushed back to the villa, Julia's face was ghostly pale. Her tear-filled eyes stabbed into him like knives. Chapter 16. Yet the more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Didn't she understand that her reckless actions could give others leverage? That someone might use her mistakes to destroy their marriage? His words of reprimand spilled out before he could stop them. Calvin didn't want Julia to leave him, but she drifted further and further away. He couldn't pinpoint when their relationship had begun to change. Only that Julia no longer looked at him with love. He noticed her growing close to a young doctor. Then one day, while checking her laptop, he discovered dozens of emails. When he opened them, they were filled with anatomical drawings of female genitalia. obscene and explicit. Every single message had come from that doctor. For her, he had sacrificed years of careful planning, abandoning the business marriage that would have guaranteed his future. And this was how she repaid him? Calvin was panicked, furious, betrayed. So when Julia asked for a divorce, he didn't hesitate. He spoke coldly. Fine. From that moment on, they went their separate ways, like two birds flying apart, never to cross paths again. Story 2. My childhood friend gets anxiety attacks whenever he's too far away from me. That was until Ruby, the self-proclaimed savior heroine, showed up in his life. From then on, he started fighting for her, skipping classes for her, even drinking alcohol to protect her. Despite never touching a drop before, my parents wanted me to marry a powerful boss from the Hong Kong underworld. But I tried to jump off a building to threaten them just to stay with my childhood friend. He mocked me. If she really dares to jump, I'll respect her for at least having some guts. Stop acting if you're not tired. I am. The bullet comments said, you silly supporting character. Your fiancé is a Yandere villain, the most powerful boss in the whole book. He's madly in love with you. Seeing you like this makes him jealous enough to want to lock you away where no one else can see you, and play with you in different ways every day. Since I enjoy all kinds of play, I moved my foot away from the ledge. I've changed my mind. When is he marrying me? Chapter 1. I was teetering on the edge of the rooftop, my body swaying dangerously. The barrage of bullet comments in front of me was furiously trying to stop me. Don't do anything foolish. There's no benefit for you in jumping. If you jump, the protagonist will completely steal all your luck. Ruby held Sam tightly, biting her lip, tears in her eyes but refusing to let them fall. Julia, come down already. Fine. I'll give Sam back to you. Just don't do anything foolish. You're the young lady. Only you deserve to be with him. I'm just an orphan without anyone. I won't fight you for him. Sam looked at me coldly, his heart aching as he held Ruby's hand even tighter. She's not worth you lowering yourself like this. If she wants to jump, let her jump. Can't you tell? She's pretending. This spoiled young lady who's been pampered all her life, no way she'll really jump. You're the only one kind enough to fall for her act. He looked at me with tired eyes, frowning. Julia, stop acting if you're not tired. I am. The boy who once had eyes only for me now put all his heart into protecting another woman. But he seemed to have forgotten that once. He also begged me desperately not to leave him. Chapter 2. Sam had separation anxiety. He couldn't be more than 1,000 meters away from me. He was my childhood friend, growing up by my side, always protecting me from anyone who tried to bully me. We lived in the same villa neighborhood, and until middle school, he even climbed through my window every day to sleep in the same bed as me. Whether it was going to or from school, he was always by my side, carrying my bag. If I didn't understand my homework, he would teach me with endless patience. Even if we argue sometimes, as soon as I cried, he would immediately bow his head and comfort me. Every New Year, we celebrate together. Sam's New Year's wish was always the same. Sam wants to marry Julia someday. 10 years went by, and that wish never changed. Until that year. It was around the first year of high school. That year, I went abroad for a piano competition. When I returned, Sam stood silently at my door and was the first to rush to me, pulling me into a tight hug. He held me, trembling, and said, Julia, you went too far this time. Never leave me this far again. I stroked the back of his head, feeling sorry for him, and said, okay, I won't go anywhere anymore. Suddenly, a live stream full of bullet comments appeared before me. Sigh. If Sam knew what he'd do to Julia in the future, making her want to jump off a building and allowing everyone to bully her, he'd probably wish he could kill his present self. The comment disappeared as quickly as it came, along with the entire live stream. Back then, I didn't realize the seriousness of it. I just thought I was seeing things. Until the beginning of sophomore year, when the new transfer student arrived. Chapter 3. Her name was Ruby. She was the new transfer student. A poor one. When she finished introducing herself and brushed past Sam, I caught a glint of awe in his dazed eyes. Ruby was like the heroine of a high school romance drama, a gust of wind that completely unsettled Sam's heart. She sat at the back of the classroom by the window, like a delicate yet resilient white flower. From that moment on, I felt Sam's gaze drift away from me. It was around this time that the live stream reappeared. Wow, the heroine of the Savior story is finally here. She's beautiful. The male lead can't take his eyes off her. She truly deserves to be the heroine. But doesn't anyone feel bad for Sam's childhood sweetheart? I guess a childhood bond will never beat someone new and exciting. But these rare comments of sympathy were drowned out by the flood of messages about the heroine's looks. After that, Ruby slowly began taking over the place I held in Sam's heart. I tried to keep Sam away from her. So on the first day of school, I clung to him, saying, "We have to go home together today." For the first time, Sam smiled as he looked at my pouty face and said, "Okay." But on that very day, some guys from the other class came to trouble Ruby, shouting that they'd make her leave the school. In a critical moment, Sam stepped in front of Ruby, daring anyone to try and harm her. "As long as I'm here, let's see who dares to touch her." From then on, the one who walked home with Sam every day was Ruby. The next day, Ruby threw away the stomach-soothing porridge I had made for my childhood sweetheart, replacing it with tea she brewed herself. The third day, she was right there beside Sam when his claustrophobia flared up. The fourth day, I watched helplessly as they grew closer and closer. Finally, one day, I clung to Sam, saying my stomach hurt and I wanted him to go home with me. He raised his eyelids lazily and looked at me. "Julia, listen to me. Ruby needs me more than you do." Later, I found out that Ruby's father was a gambling addict, who had scammed his relatives and friends out of their money. The guy who troubled Ruby on the first day of school was Lucas. His mother's life-saving money had been swindled by Ruby's father. Around the beginning of summer break, Lucas cornered Ruby in an alley. Sam fought like a madman to protect her. That was the first time I saw that kind of fierce desperation from Sam. I cried while running to get security. I ran so fast that I fell, losing a shoe. The security guards came, and Lucas's gang fled. I wanted to check on Sam's injuries, but he pushed me away and instead carefully checked Ruby for any wounds. "Are you okay?" He completely forgot I was standing right next to him. In my rush earlier, I hadn't picked up my favorite shoe, and my knees were scraped, bleeding. I was spoiled since childhood and couldn't help crying when I felt wronged. But seeing Ruby in Sam's arms, sobbing before me, I suddenly couldn't shed a single tear. Maybe deep down, I knew that my tears no longer mattered to Sam. Later, they went to the same university. After graduation, Ruby became his secretary at his company. Ruby had a mild heart condition. At the dinner, Sam, who never drank on her behalf. When his stomach pain flared up, I spent time preparing a nutritious meal for him in the kitchen. That nutritious meal was fed, spoon by spoon, into Ruby's mouth by Sam. The thing that was hardest for me to accept was that my parents seemed to slowly start liking Ruby too. Ruby rushed my father to the hospital when he suddenly had a heart attack. Even though he had never had anything like that before, Ruby was invited over as a guest by my parents. My mother personally combed Ruby's hair. It felt like no matter how hard I tried, everything that belonged to me was destined to be taken by the heroine. My love, my special place, everything was being taken away by Ruby. Little by little, later on, my parents arranged a marriage for me without my consent. It is said that he is an extremely ruthless big boss from Hong Kong City. I looked at Sam for help. Sam just paused briefly, then casually flipped through a book and said indifferently, "You're stubborn and unruly. It's good for someone to keep you in check." To resist the arranged marriage, I stood defiantly on the rooftop. I didn't expect that even when I stood there teetering on the edge, Sam's eyes showed no hint of emotion. There was a time when, even if I just scraped my skin, he would apologize profusely, blaming himself for not protecting me well. In my daze, I felt my body slowly leaning forward. The comments woke me up. Sigh. This is where Julia, heartbroken, lost her balance and fell down. She didn't die but ended up paralyzed from the waist down. She thought jumping would make Sam regret it. But what happened? He blamed himself for a few days, had a relapse of his anxiety, but soon got over it with the female lead comforting him. Their affection for each other even increased by 10% due to this ordeal. By the way, the female lead stayed by Julia's parents' side, comforting them, and they were so moved that they even wanted to adopt her and give her a home. The female lead agreed. The story ends with Julia lying paralyzed in bed, shedding a tear, while her parents and childhood friend travel the world with the female lead, saying that her presence brings them joy and happiness. Suddenly, I felt despair. Does no one in this world love me? Is it just because I'm not the female lead? A comment suddenly grabbed all my attention. Supporting character. You're so clueless. Your arranged marriage partner is the Yandere villain, the most powerful boss in this book. He is madly in love with you. When he finds out you're jumping off a building for another man, he gets so jealous that he wants to lock you up where no one can see you, changing positions with you every day. Chapter 4. I was stunned, thinking I was seeing things, but more comments followed quickly. Yes, he's been secretly in love with the supporting character for many years. When she was paralyzed, he took care of her personally and never missed a day. The supporting character can't move her legs and needs help bathing. He bathes her, but she keeps trying to hide. Accidentally, she touches a place she shouldn't, and he gets aroused and takes her right in the bathtub. He has all kinds of ways, and because her legs can't move, she can't escape even when she's overwhelmed and nearly faints. She can only cry, biting his collarbone, and tearfully begging him to put her down. Yes, yes. The author even wrote an extra for them. Their story alone could be a whole spicy novel. These comments made my cheeks flush. To be honest, I often hid under the covers reading spicy novels. I immediately did a turtle retreat on the rooftop. I didn't want to jump anymore. People around were still trying to convince Sam. Why don't you try to persuade her to come down? She always listens to you. Yeah, she likes you so much. If you just wave at her, she'll come down. Sam was indifferent. He knew that Julia was just putting on a show for him. She wouldn't really jump. If she was unwilling, she could just say so properly, and he would find a way to have the elders cancel the marriage. But he couldn't indulge her like this every time she was being willful. It wouldn't be fair to Ruby. He had to do this, to temper her temper. He looked up and said, "So many people are watching. Can you stop acting out? Come down already. Do you want to embarrass your parents completely? I'll find a way to cancel the marriage. But let me make it clear, even without this marriage, I've always seen you as a sister. You should not have any improper thoughts about me." Just then, I suddenly jumped down from the rooftop. Then, hopping over to my parents, I said, "I've changed my mind. I want to go through with the marriage. When is he going to marry me?" Sam was stunned, his eyes growing cold. "Julia, what kind of tantrum are you throwing now?" I didn't bother to answer him. I had figured it out. Jumping off a building for a man who favored an outsider wasn't worth it. I repeated my request. "I want to get married." I tugged at my mother's sleeve, swaying back and forth like I used to when I was little. "I want to get married. Please arrange for me to meet him soon." My mother was stunned for a moment. Then tears started flowing as she hugged me tightly. "Silly child. You almost scared me to death just now." Ruby watched the scene, and her expression instantly turned unpleasant. I raised my eyes and looked at her. "Ruby, what's wrong? You look so upset. Are you unhappy because I didn't jump?" Everyone's gaze immediately fell on Ruby. Her expression froze for a second but quickly turned aggrieved. "How could that be? You misunderstood me. I was just worried you might really jump." "It scared me." She blinked, tears welling up as she clutched Sam's sleeve. "Julia, why do you always have such hostility towards me? Is it just because Sam likes me and not you? If that's the case, I'll leave alone tomorrow, as long as it makes you happy." Sam's eyes grew colder, as he held Ruby protectively. "Julia, apologize. In the past, seeing him protect her like this would have made me very sad." I looked at Ruby. "Don't misunderstand. I'm about to get married. How could I still have any lingering feelings for him? I don't like him anymore." I looked at Sam, and said each word seriously. "Sam, from now on, I won't bother you anymore." Sam's gaze stalled for a moment. Then, he slowly revealed a mocking smile. "All right, Julia, you've learned something this time. Changing your tactics. Huh, You better not regret it. Ruby leaned against him. Sam, my heart hurts a little. Let's go home. Ruby's health was never great. Whenever she said her heart hurt, Sam would forget everything else and focus all his attention on her. But this time, Sam seemed distracted. It took him a while to snap out of it. All right, let's go. After all, in no time, Julia would be back to clinging to him as if nothing had happened. That's how it always was. She was like a clingy plaster, impossible to get rid of. There was no way she would give up so easily. She was probably just trying to play hard to get, like in those romance novels. Chapter 5. Kevin had returned to the mainland. Rumor had it he was the most powerful villain in the book, belonging to the top aristocratic family of the Hong Kong circle, not to mention Julia's declining family. Even Sam's prestigious family in Shanghai couldn't compare. It was probably to discuss matters of the arranged marriage with me. To meet him, I dressed up carefully. When I arrived in the living room, I found he was already there. The man sitting on the sofa had striking features, deep contours, broad shoulders, and long legs. He wore a fitted black shirt, and his lean waist looked very powerful. At this moment, his eyes were slightly downcast as he was engrossed in reading a newspaper. Curious, I didn't disturb him and carefully moved closer to take a peek. Julia, in defiance of the arranged marriage, resorted to threatening to jump off a building to force Master Sam to break up with his girlfriend and date her. I was directly stunned into silence. Are these media outlets even polite? Besides, I never forced him to break up. Originally, I had planned to keep the rooftop incident a secret from Kevin, but now it seemed impossible to hide it. Thinking about Kevin's ruthless methods in the business world, always taking revenge, and being able to decide the fate of others' companies at will, my actions were simply an insult to him. I immediately felt intimidated. Let me explain. Kevin put down the newspaper. Not angry at all. I understand. Miss Julia has no emotional foundation with me. It was my oversight that led to this situation. I was a bit surprised. Kevin's demeanor didn't match the madness described by the comments. He was calm and composed, the kind that comes from experience in the world of power and fame. It seemed different from what I imagined. The comments couldn't hold back. Funny. He's pretending again. Clearly, he's jealous as hell. He flew overnight just to see Julia after a meeting, and as soon as he landed, he saw this newspaper. The sky fell in for him, and he sulked for an entire day. Seeing that comment, for some reason, a subtle warmth surged in my heart. Looking at the man in front of me again, I suddenly found him a lot cuter. Kevin lifted his eyes, his gaze landing directly on me as he spoke gently. Regarding this matter, I have a solution. Before the engagement, I hope Miss Julia can move into my riverside villa for a while tomorrow to cultivate some emotional connection with me. How about it? Seeing my hesitant expression, he spoke in a reassuring tone. Miss Julia need not worry. Before marriage, I won't do anything inappropriate. The comments instantly exploded. If you trust him, you must be crazy. He's lying. In the book, he also said he'd absolutely respect her before marriage, never cross any boundaries. But in reality, he crossed all the boundaries. I cleared my throat and agreed to his plan. All right, I'll move in tomorrow. Oh, by the way, Mr. Kevin, since this is our first meeting, I prepared a small gift for you. I did my homework. Kevin likes antiques, so I specifically bought an antique pocket watch to give to him, hoping to increase his favorability. But as soon as I spoke, Kevin's expression instantly turned strange. You said, first meeting? I blinked, not understanding why he was so surprised. Yeah, first meeting. Why? The back of Kevin's hand tensed as if he was struggling to restrain his emotions. Did you forget? When you were little, I was recovering at your house. I even held you. And also, I was even more confused. I had no idea about any of this. I asked tentatively, really? A long silence. Kevin's smile turned dangerous. Brooking no argument. Forget it. I don't think we need to wait until tomorrow. Miss Julia, please move in today. His tone was chilling. There are some things we clearly need time to remember. Slowly. Chapter 6. That night, I moved into Kevin's villa. I had to say. Kevin truly lived up to the reputation of a top aristocratic family. Even his temporary villa was much more spacious and grand than my old family estate. My bedroom was twice as big as before. Very dangerous. In the words of the comments, when it comes to rolling around in bed, there's not even enough time to escape before being dragged back. Lying in bed, I was utterly lost. Why was Kevin so angry when I said it was our first meeting? The comments whispered in front of my eyes. The supporting character is so dumb. When Kevin was 7 years old, he got into a car accident, injured his eyes, and was sent to your house to recuperate. The two families were close. Kevin's family didn't have the time or energy to care for him, so they left him temporarily at Julia's house. Back then, the supporting character was only 3 years old, a little clingy child, always pestering him to carry her, calling him big brother. Otherwise, who did she think sent those mysterious Christmas gifts that never failed to arrive for 20 years? Did she really think Santa Claus existed? I looked at those comments, wrapped myself in a blanket, and groggily drifted into a dream. In the dream, I saw myself stumble, after having struggled to chase away Lucas and his gang for Sam, while Ruby sobbed in his arms. I was left aside, like an outsider. I had always been a crybaby, but at that moment, I forgot to shed a single tear. But that night, I did something very reckless. I rebelled. I ran off to a bar by myself to get drunk. When I was utterly wasted, a few thugs grabbed my arm, trying to drag me to a private room. A man stepped in to protect me, coldly uttering a single word, "Scram." The thugs fled in disarray. I don't remember how I got home, but after that, Ruby's father, who had been on the run for fraud, was caught, and the news was exposed by the media. Lucas's mother's illness also received timely treatment. Ruby's reputation at school began to deteriorate, but Sam still protected her. Later, on the day Sam confessed to Ruby, I had a fever and stumbled alone to the street corner. A car sped towards me, and someone pulled me back into a warm, solid chest. "Silly girl, how far do you want to go to make me worry about you?" The man pantsed, as if extremely anxious. I wasn't scared of nearly being hit by the car. Instead, it felt like I had finally found someone I could cry to, and I suddenly burst into tears. I don't even know what's wrong with me, but it hurts so much. Why does nobody need me anymore? Why? Dad likes her, Mom likes her, and Sam likes her too. I sobbed, hiccuping as I cried. Sam is an idiot. I don't want him anymore. I don't want to like him ever again. The man was silent for a long time, gently coaxing me. Then, "How about you like me instead?" Out of nowhere, I blinked and said, "Okay." I don't remember how I got home that day. I only remembered that when I woke up in the morning, there was a ring on the ring finger of my left hand. A ring on the left ring finger signifies being engaged or deeply in love. I thought I had bought it on a whim while sick and feverish at some mall and didn't think much of it. I tossed it casually into my jewelry box. Kevin's voice overlapped with that of the man in my dream. I suddenly woke up from sleep, hair sticking up in disarray, and sank into deep thought. We clearly had so much history, there was even a token of our feelings, yet I remembered nothing. It was like I was under a spell, unable to remember anyone, unable to see anyone, unable to leave any trace in my heart except for Sam. He had been looking forward to our reunion with all his heart. But today, I said to him, "Hello, nice to meet you. Am I kind of a jerk?" Chapter 7. Early the next morning, following the butler's reminder, I went to Kevin's study. I gently opened the door. Kevin was sitting at the desk, leaning back in his chair, his fingers lightly rubbing the pocket watch I had given him yesterday. The ticking sound was steady, like his heartbeat. Seeing me, he lifted his gaze. "Did you rest well last night?" I replied, "Quite well." I hesitated for a moment, then said apologetically, "Sorry. I think I remember something now. Yesterday really wasn't our first meeting." A faint, almost imperceptible smile crossed Kevin's lips. He closed the pocket watch and put it in his chest pocket. "No matter. Let's forget about the past. After all, from now on, I'll make sure you remember me very well." His gaze on me was scorching and intense. I couldn't help but shrink back for a moment. There are many ways to leave a lasting impression. Perhaps it's through thoughtful, constant companionship, or maybe through a powerful impact that leaves one breathless. Chapter 8. Living with Kevin was somewhat different from what I imagined. He was restrained and polite, never doing anything inappropriate to me, but his care for me was indeed meticulous. In fact, it was even more detailed than my parents. I don't like drinking water every morning when I wake up. There are 3 beautiful glasses filled with water on the dining table, along with a note reminding me to finish them before he comes home. I wanted to learn braiding from a video by a blogger, but because I'm clumsy, I couldn't get it right. Kevin watched the video once and got it. I sat nervously in front of the mirror as he combed my hair, strands slipping through his fingers. It tickled. He styled me beautifully, like a little princess. Kevin would lean over to look at me in the mirror, as if admiring a piece of art. He said, "Julia, you are beautiful. I'm a renowned pianist in my field, and every night, I practice in the music room." He had a music room specially set up for me in the villa. When I practiced, he would stay by my side either listening to the music or reading some complicated book, but he was always there. With him, I felt like I was being treated with complete dedication, but I was surprised. So far, he seemed to be a very gentlemanly person. Nothing like the comments said, "A Yandere psycho." I even began to doubt the authenticity of those comments. Until today, when I came to his study, according to the comments, he had a secret room filled with hidden secrets about me. Following the comments' guidance, I turned a book on the shelf, a mechanism activated, and a hidden room behind the bookshelf opened. Driven by curiosity, I couldn't resist the temptation and walked in. The sight before me made my eyes widen. The secret room had walls covered entirely with candid photos of me from various angles. I was stunned. The comments were actually true. I instinctively stepped back, trying to escape. A slender, well-defined hand covered my mouth. "Shoo, don't speak," he sighed. "What a pity. You found it by accident. I should have hidden it deeper. How could I almost forget that when you were little? You were very clever. At 3 years old, you could find the candies I intentionally hid." I wanted to speak, but his hand on my lips prevented any sound from escaping. I looked at him with pleading eyes, hoping he'd let me speak, but Kevin didn't want to. "Julia, I know you're afraid of me, but I don't want to hear you say you hate me. Be good. Take a bath, and then get a good night's sleep, as if nothing happened today. All right?" Chapter 9. Kevin carried me into the bathroom. My mouth was still covered, and I couldn't speak. I was now pretty certain that Kevin was indeed the Yandere villain. Tonight, he was different from his usual self, but why wouldn't he just let me finish speaking? If only he'd give me a chance to talk. I would immediately tell him that I don't hate him. In the bathtub, the warm water soaked into my body. Suddenly, I remembered that if I had followed the original plot and jumped, leaving me paralyzed, every bath would have been Kevin holding me, unable to move. Our first time would have been in the bathtub. Kevin slowly approached me, his dark eyes hiding emotions I couldn't read. "I never told you. That day, when you went up to the rooftop to jump to reject our arranged marriage, I was very angry. So angry that I wanted to hide you, to put you somewhere no one could see you. But I couldn't bear it. I couldn't bear to see you sad. But you made a mistake, so I need to give you a little punishment, right? Julia, don't be afraid of me, because you're the only one I care about in this world." The rest of my memory was a blur. My legs hung over the edge of the bathtub, the water rippling. I felt like I was being thrown into the sea, rising and falling with Kevin's movements. We became one. To avoid falling, I could only cling tightly to Kevin's neck, my tears falling into the bathtub. When I was carried back to the bed, my legs were weak. The thing blocking my mouth was gone. I reached out and grabbed him. "Don't go, Kevin. I'm not afraid of you, and I don't hate you. Why won't you let me finish speaking?" He froze, standing there, his eyes looking at me, glistening. Before he could respond, I continued. "I've made up my mind a long time ago. I want to marry you. I should have figured it out sooner." His response was a passionate, urgent kiss. He panted, holding my hand against his chest. his eyes filled with unfathomable love. I wish I could give you my heart. I don't know how to give you more. That night, we fell onto the bed, entangled with each other. I kissed him, accidentally reigniting his desire. That night, he wore me out until I was begging for mercy. When I woke up in the morning, there was a ring on my left ring finger. He stroked my head and said to me, "Now that you're wearing it, you can't take it off." I nodded and softly said okay. After living together for a month, Kevin came with me to visit my mother. Honestly, I was a bit reluctant. When I was in college, Sam confessed to Ruby. After that, my parents grew closer to Ruby, so I became more and more uncomfortable, frequently arguing with them and threatening to run away from home. But that only gave Ruby an opportunity. Every time I slammed the door and ran away, Ruby would come visit my parents, comforting them, saying that she already saw them as her own parents. However, since my last rooftop incident, my parents clearly cared about me more, contacting me often. When we got home, my mom warmly received Kevin and me. After dinner, she pulled me onto the sofa for a chat. As we talked, she brought up Ruby. Mom said to me, "Ruby hinted that Sam's mother thinks her background is unworthy, and she wants me to take her in as an adopted daughter." I thought I didn't care anymore, but it turns out anything related to Ruby still sets me off instantly. My fingers clenched, my whole body trembling. Suddenly, Kevin squeezed my hand. His hand was warm, comforting. He looked at me with a gentle yet firm gaze, as if injecting a sense of strength into my restless soul. I took a deep breath, and my emotions slowly calmed down. Then Kevin lifted his eyes slightly. "Auntie, perhaps you'd like to hear Julia's thoughts on this." Only then did my mom notice my reddened eyes. She hurriedly said, "I was careless. Of course. We need to hear what my dear Julia thinks." "I'll listen to you, sweetheart." I curled my fingers and slowly voiced my thoughts over all these years. Even though Ruby indeed sent my dad to the hospital in time back then, we've done more than enough for her all these years. Her college tuition and living expenses were covered by our family. She never lacked anything to eat or wear. So why does she still want to take my mom and dad away from me? I also get jealous. I feel hurt, and I don't want to feel this way. That's why I ran away. I was stubborn. I resisted. I didn't want my parents, who belonged to me alone, to become someone else's. Mom, I don't like Ruby. Not because Sam likes her, but because from the very first time I saw her, I just felt unhappy. Mom, I don't want you to get too close to Ruby. I've cried so many times because of her. After so many years, I finally spoke out all those emotions that had been buried deep inside. I awaited my mother's judgment, but instead, she touched my head and let out a long sigh. "Julia, you really have grown up. I'll listen to you on this. From now on, I'll slowly distance myself from her." The comments were amused. Finally, the mother-daughter knot is untied. But honestly, I can't believe that even though the supporting character didn't jump, the female lead still tried to push herself into their lives, even offering herself to be adopted. How shameless is that? Yeah, in the original plot, it was Julia's family who brought it up. The female lead pretended to refuse at first but eventually accepted, gaining the affection meant for the supporting character while also earning a good reputation. Now, she just outright grabbed it. But did you guys notice? The villain's luck is seriously powerful. Being by his side has slowly turned Julia's fortune around. After that, Kevin had a long private conversation with my parents in the study. I didn't know what Kevin said to them, but when they came out, they hugged me tightly, crying and telling me that I was their only daughter, and no one could take away their love from me. Kevin stood behind them, looking at me tenderly. After that, my parents truly distanced themselves from Ruby. My father got a new phone number without telling Ruby. My mom cut off all contact, went abroad on vacation, and Ruby couldn't find her even if she wanted to. Because of this, I realized I might love Kevin even more. I knew that he was the only one who had always stood firmly by my side. When we got home, I couldn't resist pressing my lips to his. Couldn't even wait to turn on the lights. My coat fell to the floor as Kevin picked me up. From the floor to the sofa, then to the bed, our clothes were left behind along the way. Finally, my back pressed against the floor-to-ceiling window. He kissed every part of me with his eyes closed. I couldn't take it anymore. My nails scratching light red marks on his back. Stop for a bit. I can't take it. He chuckled. You started the fire. Now you need to put it out. It was only in the middle of the night that I finally managed to extinguish his fire. After that, Kevin got a taste and kept at it every night. Our stamina wasn't even on the same level, and each time, he pushed me to the point of begging for mercy. The room was too big, which wasn't good. Every time I tried to run from the bed, before I even reached the doorknob, he would pull me back. After another night of him wearing me out, the next morning, my phone rang. Kevin was holding me in his arms, and I stretched my arm, covered in kiss marks, to reach for the phone on the bedside table. It was Sam's friend, Diego. Diego was one of Sam's close friends and usually treated me well. I hesitated for a moment but answered. Diego's anxious voice came through the phone. Julia, long time no see. You know what? Sam's in the hospital with a stomach issue. Before, you were always the one taking care of his stomach problems. Could you make some vegetable porridge and bring it to the hospital? He always feels much better after eating it. I looked at Kevin and said, Diego, I'm engaged to Kevin now. Please don't tell me about Sam anymore. It's unfair to my fiancé. Without waiting for Diego to say anything else, I hung up. On the other end, Sam was stunned when he saw that I had hung up on Diego. When Diego said he was going to call me, Sam called to stop him but didn't actually make a move to intervene. He couldn't explain his feelings clearly, but for some reason, he wanted me to know, wanted to see me worry about him. In the past, whenever I knew he had stomach issues, no matter how late or tired I was, I'd always make some vegetable porridge for him and bring it to his side, refusing to leave even if he tried to make me. But now, without even asking, I hung up. Sam couldn't describe what he felt. His heart felt stifled, like a heavy stone was pressing down on it. Ruby grabbed Sam's hand, acting cute. Sam, it's okay. I'll make porridge for you. My cooking is way better than Julia's. Sam's gaze never once landed on her. He nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. Chapter 10. Kevin left in the morning without having breakfast. Before leaving, he kissed my forehead and said he was busy and wouldn't be back that night, asking me to wait for him tomorrow. According to Kevin's secretary, Kevin had an eye checkup and then a flight to Hong Kong to handle business. I guessed he wouldn't have time to eat, so I decided to cook a few of my specialty dishes to bring to the hospital where he was having his checkup. I hadn't cooked in a while, so I was a bit out of practice and ended up cutting myself a few times. I asked the butler to help me treat the cuts a bit, didn't pay much attention, and then took the thermal container to the hospital. Meanwhile, in the hospital room, Diego entered Sam's private ward to visit him. He cheerfully said to Sam, I just saw Julia outside the hospital. She had a thermal container with her, definitely for you. I told you, as soon as she knew you were sick, she wouldn't be able to help but come see you. For some reason, at that moment, the restlessness that had been bothering Sam all day suddenly calmed down. The corners of his lips lifted slightly, but his tone remained indifferent. Nosy. Diego casually poured himself a glass of water. But I saw her getting lost in the hospital. She's probably lost her way. Want me to go out and bring her in? The corners of Sam's lips twitched, and he let out a cold snort. Silly girl. Getting lost would serve her right. But despite saying that, he still got out of bed to go find me. Ruby stopped him. Sam, you're not feeling well. Let me go find Julia instead. She pursed her lips, holding on to Sam's sleeve, looking a bit aggrieved. But, Sam, you shouldn't show too much concern for her, or else she'll start clinging to you again. Sam was in a good mood right now and spoke to Ruby gently. You're overthinking it. I only see her as a sister. If she keeps clinging to me, I'll just tell her to get lost. At that moment, I was staring at the vast hospital, lost in thought. Where was the eye department again? I walked into the long hallway of the hospital and sent Kevin a message. I made lunch and stopped by the hospital where you're having your checkup to bring it to you. But I think I'm lost. Kevin quickly replied, stay where you are. Send me your location. I'll come find you. Then Kevin called me. A smile spread across my face. One I didn't even notice myself. As soon as I answered the call, An unwelcome figure suddenly appeared in front of me. Ruby reached out to me. "All right. You can hand it over here. Just give me the container." I paused, tightly guarding the thermal container in my hands. "What do you mean? Are you seriously trying to snatch my container in broad daylight?" Ruby's face showed a hint of disdain. "Isn't that porridge for Sam? Just give it to me." "But you're really pathetic. You said you wouldn't cling to him, and yet here you are, not even a few days later, chasing after him again." "What? Can't live without a man? After all, he's my boyfriend. If you keep getting too close to him, it won't be good for your reputation, will it? Everyone knows by now, Miss Julia. So improper. Always hanging around someone else's boyfriend. You don't really think you can get close to him again by bringing him porridge, do you? Have you forgotten? Every time you made something for him before, it either got thrown away or was fed to me. People should know their place. Don't go out of your way to be annoying, little sister." She looked at me arrogantly. "Come on, give me the thermal container, but you'd better know that as soon as I say I don't like it, Sam will dump the porridge you made, little by little, right in front of me." After saying that, she tried to snatch the thermal container from my arms without my consent, worried Kevin might hear me curse. I hung up the call. When Ruby reached out to grab the container, I snapped. "What's wrong with you? Is this your stuff for you to just take?" I used all my strength to push her away, tightly guarding the thermal container in my arms. I had spent the entire morning preparing this meal, even cut myself accidentally. There was no way I'd let her have it. Ruby didn't expect me to fight back. Her face turned dark. "You're insane." Sam's voice came from behind her. "What's going on? Why aren't you back yet?" Ruby immediately changed her expression, her eyes welling up, and she looked down with a pitiful expression. "I don't know. Julia pushed me when she saw me. I don't even know why." Sam frowned. "Julia, you're being too much. Apologize now." His gaze was stern as he looked at me. "I've told you, I'm not interested in you, and I don't like you clinging to me. Don't keep doing things that embarrass yourself." "Who said she's embarrassing herself?" Kevin's hand rested on my shoulder. He stood in front of me, his gaze dangerous. "When did my fiancé need you to teach her a lesson?" At the word fiancé, Sam's eyes twitched. His face darkened. "Is that so? But it seems your fiancé doesn't love you all that much, since she made porridge herself and came to see me in the hospital." Kevin let out a cold laugh. "Young Master Sam, you sure are full of yourself. But before we get into that, how about having your girlfriend apologize to my fiancé?" He opened his phone and played the call recording. Ruby's voice came through clearly. "Isn't that porridge for Sam? Just give it to me. You said you wouldn't cling to him, and yet here you are, not even a few days later, chasing after him again." "What? Can't live without a man? After all, he's my boyfriend. If you keep getting too close to him, it won't be good for your reputation, will it? Everyone knows it by now. Miss Julia is improper. Always clinging to someone else's boyfriend. You don't really think you can get close to him again by bringing porridge, do you? Have you forgotten that everything you made for him before was either thrown away or fed to me? People should know their place. Don't go out of your way to be annoying, little sister." I never expected Kevin to record that conversation. Ruby clearly didn't expect it either. Her face immediately turned pale. "Sam, let me explain." Sam looked at Ruby scrutinizingly, as if he was seeing her for the first time. In his memory, Ruby had always been gentle, someone who needed protecting. She had never been like this, harsh, aggressive. Since high school, Julia had always picked on Ruby just because she was a poor student. Easy to bully. But how could Ruby speak to Julia like that? I linked my arm with Kevin's. "Forget it. Let's not waste time with them. You still have to catch a flight this afternoon. Here, take the food I made for you." Kevin noticed the cut on my finger and frowned. "How did you get hurt?" I hid my hand behind my back. "It's nothing. The butler already took care of it. It doesn't hurt at all." "Oh, and the thermal container has 3 layers. The top is sweet and sour ribs. The second is steamed sea bass. And the third is shrimp and egg custard. Make sure you finish everything before getting on the plane. All right?" Kevin pressed his lips together. gently patting my head with affection. All right, I will. But don't do this kind of thing anymore. If you get hurt, it hurts me too. My heart felt warm, and I held on to Kevin, ready to leave. Wait a moment. Sam grabbed my wrist. The sunlight was dazzling, and he noticed the engagement ring on my left ring finger, his strength vanishing immediately. I let go of his hand. Young Master Sam, please respect yourself. In that moment, I realized that my heart would no longer waver because of him. I knew that I was free. Once outside the hospital, I suddenly stood on tiptoe and kissed Kevin. Holding his face, I said, "Kevin, let's get married next month." Chapter 11. Planning a wedding is an exhausting thing, but Kevin took care of everything, handling all the troublesome details. All I needed to do was choose my favorite wedding dress, invitations, and the venue. On the night I was trying on wedding dresses, Sam called me. His voice was slurred with drunkenness, sounding lonely, fragile. "Julia, I think I'm drunk. I can't stand up." I stayed silent for a moment. "Do you need me to call a cab for you?" "No, Julia. Just stay with me like this, quietly talking for a while, okay?" I said nothing. Sam's tone was filled with unwillingness. "You used to go so far as to threaten your parents with jumping off a building just to avoid marrying him. Are you with him now just to make me angry?" "I admit it. You succeeded. I regret it. Julia, I was wrong. What would it take for you to forgive me?" I spoke slowly. "Sam, you're drunk. I can't help you. Go find Ruby." We broke up. "I'm getting married." We spoke at the same time. Sam was stunned. The zipper on my wedding dress was hard to pull up, and my entire back was left exposed. Feeling chilly, Kevin leaned in, his hand resting on my shoulder as he pulled the zipper up, his rough fingertips brushing against my skin. I couldn't help it. I turned my head and kissed his chin. Kevin lazily leaned his chin towards me, his gaze sweeping over my call screen, his tone slightly provocative. "Darling, you've been talking to him for a long time. There are still plenty of dresses you haven't tried on." Suddenly, it went quiet on Sam's end. I cleared my throat softly. "The past is in the past. I apologize for always clinging to you before. But now, I truly have no feelings for you anymore. Let's leave it at that. Sam, please don't contact me again. Otherwise, my fiancé will get jealous." I hung up the phone. I didn't know what happened after that. Later, Diego told me that night, Sam had an anxiety attack, almost smashing the entire bar. When the bar staff dragged him out by his collar, Sam's mouth was bleeding from being hit, but he kept laughing and didn't resist. Luckily, the compensation was enough, and the bar owner didn't make things too difficult for him. The night before the wedding, my mother called to check on me. She said Ruby went to see my parents after breaking up with Sam, accusing me of seducing her boyfriend, which caused Sam to break up with her. I held my breath. "What did you think?" My mother let out a cold snort. "Of course. We threw her out. I won't allow anyone to insult my daughter like that." Tears welled up in my eyes. "Mom, thank you for believing in me. And please trust me. I have no feelings left for Sam. I just want to spend the rest of my life with Kevin." It was also because of this incident that my parents saw Ruby's true selfish nature and decided to cut off any support for her from then on. I heard Ruby's father got out of prison. This time, there was no Sam to protect her. It wasn't just my imagination. I could feel that the fortune that originally belonged to me was slowly returning. Everything was getting back on track. On the day of the wedding, I looked out into the audience, and Sam was standing there among the crowd. After we took our vows, he walked away, lost and broken. On social media, he wrote that he wished his 16-year-old self could kill who he had become today. When he was 16, he hadn't met Ruby yet. Back then, there were still endless possibilities for him and me. But now, he had said hurtful things to me, done things that couldn't be undone, and allowed another woman to step all over me. I almost jumped off a building for him, almost lost everything I had because of him. Now, my heart and soul belong fully to Kevin, and he is completely loyal to me. From now on, my future will no longer have someone named Sam in it. But Kevin and I, our future has no limits. Perhaps I was just a side character in Ruby's youth, but I am the main character of my own story.